Why you should be kinder to yourself. Have you ever said something like this to yourself? I'm so bad at English. Why do I always forget simple words? I'll never be good enough. If those words sound familiar, you're not alone. Many people learning English, maybe even you, carry a heavy voice inside. A voice that's not kind. A voice that always points out the mistakes, the slow progress, the moments of fear. It whispers, "You're behind," "You're not smart enough," or "You'll never speak fluently." And day by day, that voice gets louder. Louder than your courage. Louder than your progress. Louder than your love for learning. But what if I told you that voice is lying? What if I told you that the way you speak to yourself matters even more than your grammar? Even more than your vocabulary? Even more than your accent? Because it does. In today's episode of Podcast English Story, I want to talk about something we often forget when learning a language: self-kindness. We'll explore why we are so hard on ourselves when we learn, what negative self-talk really does to your confidence, and how being gentle with yourself can actually help you learn faster, speak braver, and feel better. You see, learning English, or anything big, is not just about what you study. It's also about how you treat yourself when you struggle. Because you will struggle. That's part of learning. Mistakes will happen, doubt will visit. But you don't need to add more pain by being your own biggest critic. Instead, you can learn to be your own best supporter. Imagine this. What if every time you made a mistake, you smiled and said, "That's okay. I'm learning." What if you talked to yourself the way you talk to a friend, with patience, with kindness, with belief? That small change can make a big difference. In this episode, I'll share stories, insights, and simple ways to help you start being kinder to yourself. Because your learning journey is not just about English. It's about how you grow from the inside out. So if you've ever felt not good enough, if you've ever judged yourself too quickly, if you've ever thought of giving up, take a deep breath. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not alone. You're just learning. And that's a beautiful, brave thing. Let's begin. Sometimes the most powerful words we hear each day are the ones we say to ourselves. They're not shouted, not written, not spoken aloud. They're whispered, inside, quietly, repeatedly. I'm not good at this. Why can't I remember simple grammar rules? I sound stupid when I speak English. I'll never speak like a native. These aren't just thoughts, they're beliefs. And over time, they shape how we learn, how we speak, how we show up in the world. Let me ask you a question. If a friend made a mistake while learning English, would you say to them, "That's embarrassing, you'll never get it right"? Of course not. You'd smile and say, "It's okay. You're learning. You'll get it with practice." So, why don't we say that to ourselves? There's a quiet truth we often overlook. We are kinder to strangers than we are to our own hearts. The voice inside your head, the one judging every sentence, every mispronounced word, every grammar mistake, isn't helping you improve. It's not making you stronger. It's making you scared, quiet, insecure. And yet many of us think that being hard on ourselves is how we grow. We believe that if we push ourselves harder, criticize ourselves more, we'll somehow become better. But what actually happens, we shrink. We speak less. We try less. We avoid opportunities. We feel ashamed for not being perfect, even though we're still learning. And we forget something so important. No one learns perfectly, but everyone can learn patiently. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall, again and again, and no one says you're terrible at this. We cheer them on. We celebrate their steps even when they fall right after. You deserve that same kindness. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman named Liane. She was learning English because she wanted to move abroad and work in a hotel. She loved learning. She watched videos every night, practiced vocabulary, repeated every sentence aloud. But every time she made a mistake while speaking, she would freeze. Her hands would get cold. Her heart would beat fast. And later at home, she would think I sounded so stupid. Why did I say that? She would replay the moment again and again, like a broken movie in her mind. One day she told her teacher, "I want to stop. I can't do this. I'm too slow." And her teacher asked one question. If your best friend said that, what would you tell her? Liane went quiet. She blinked, looked down, and whispered, "I'd tell her. She's doing her best, and she should be proud." The teacher smiled. And now say that to yourself. It felt strange at first, awkward, unnatural. But day by day, Liane started changing the way she spoke to herself. After each practice, she began writing one small sentence in her notebook. "I'm proud of my effort. Today, I showed up. Even when I was afraid, I tried." Her grammar didn't suddenly become perfect. Her vocabulary didn't triple overnight. But something changed her courage. She began raising her hand in class. She began speaking without apologizing first. She laughed more. She made mistakes and kept going. And that made all the difference. Because confidence doesn't come from being perfect. Confidence comes from being kind to yourself, even when you're not. Let's pause and reflect. What kind of voice do you use when you talk to yourself? Is it the voice of a strict teacher who's never satisfied? Or the voice of a patient friend who believes in you? Maybe you've never noticed. Maybe your voice sounds like a mix of every teacher who corrected you, every classmate who laughed, every moment when you felt embarrassed. But here's the truth. You can choose a different voice. Starting today, let's try something right now. Think of a moment recent when you made a mistake while speaking English. Maybe you used the wrong verb tense. Maybe someone didn't understand you. Maybe you froze. Now imagine talking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love. Would you say, "How could you mess that up?" Or would you say, "Hey, mistakes are part of learning. I'm still proud of you for trying." Say it out loud if you can. It may feel strange, even fake. But over time, those words begin to feel real. They begin to become your truth. Because the truth is, every time you speak English, even badly, you are moving forward. Every mistake is a step. Every effort is progress. But if your mind is only filled with criticism, you won't notice the progress. You won't feel proud. You'll feel stuck. And that's the danger of a harsh inner voice. It doesn't stop you from learning, it just stops you from believing that you're learning. And when you stop believing, you start quitting. I once met a student named Thomas. He had been learning English for 5 years on and off. He could write well. He understood a lot when listening. But when it came to speaking, he always froze. He said, "I hear myself and I sound stupid." I asked him, "Did someone say you sound stupid?" He said, "No, I say it to myself." Thomas didn't need a better textbook. He didn't need new vocabulary. He needed a new way of speaking to himself. So we started small. Instead of I sound stupid, he practiced saying, I'm learning to express myself. Instead of I can't speak, he said I'm still building my confidence. And after every sentence he spoke in English, he added a whisper, I did it. You'd be amazed how quickly things changed. Not because his grammar improved overnight, but because his fear began to shrink. When we treat ourselves with patience, progress feels possible. When we speak to ourselves with gentleness, we become brave enough to speak at all. So let me ask again, what kind of voice are you using inside your head? If it's not kind, can you begin changing it? Not all at once, not perfectly, but gently, slowly, with love, because you're not just learning English. You're learning how to believe in yourself again, and that belief starts with the way you speak to your own heart. You may think your words don't matter, but the way you speak to yourself, even in silence, can shape your whole world. Most of us are not even aware of how harsh we can be. We mess up one sentence in English, and suddenly a storm of judgment fills our head. You're hopeless. How can you still make that mistake? You'll never speak fluently. These thoughts may seem small, but repeated every day they become heavy. And slowly, they start to change how we feel, how we act, and what we believe we're capable of. Let me tell you the story of Farah. Farah was an enthusiastic learner. She loved the sound of English. She watched movies, followed podcasts, even sang along to songs. But every time she opened her mouth in class, she stumbled. She'd forget words. Her pronunciation wasn't perfect. And after each mistake, she would think, everyone's laughing inside. My English is awful. I should just stay quiet. Little by little, she did exactly that. She stayed quiet. Her love for English didn't disappear, but her confidence did. When her teacher asked her to read, she said she was tired. When her classmates formed speaking groups, she stayed in the back. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't shy by nature. She was scared of her own voice. That fear didn't come from other people. It came from herself, from the way she judged every word she said, from the way she turned every small mistake into a personal failure. And she's not alone. Many learners give up not because they don't have the ability, but because they've been too unkind to themselves for too long. Let me ask you something difficult. Have you ever stopped yourself from speaking just because you were afraid of how you might sound? Have you ever felt like a failure after a small mistake, even when no one else noticed it? Have you ever punished yourself for not being perfect? Yet, if your answer is yes, then you felt the pain of self-criticism. And that pain is real. It shows up in your body in the tightness of your chest, the pressure in your throat, the tension in your shoulders. It shows up in your behavior, in your silence, in your hesitation, in your need to prepare more before you ever speak. And most painfully, it shows up in your heart, in the belief that maybe you're just not good enough. But here's the truth. Self-criticism doesn't make you stronger. It makes you smaller. It's like trying to grow a flower by shouting at it. It doesn't help. It just scares it into closing up. What you need is not more pressure. You need more kindness. And kindness isn't weakness. Kindness is strength, the kind that says, I made a mistake and that's okay. I'm still learning and I don't have to be perfect today. I'm showing up. I'm trying. And that matters. Let's look at this from another angle. Imagine two students, Anna and Joel. Anna makes a mistake while speaking. She tells herself, I always do this. I'm so bad. She feels embarrassed and stays quiet the rest of the class. Joel makes the same mistake, but he tells himself, "Oops, that was wrong, but I tried. I'll get it next time." He laughs, takes a breath, and keeps talking. Who do you think will learn faster? Who will feel more confident tomorrow? The answer is obvious, not because Joel is smarter, but because Joel is kinder. Kindness opens the door to courage, and courage opens the door to learning. When we're kind to ourselves, we feel safer to try. We feel brave enough to speak. And when we speak more, we learn more. It's not magic, it's mindset. But let's be honest. Changing the way we think about ourselves is not easy. If you've spent years being hard on yourself, if you grew up in a school system that punished mistakes, if you've been told that only perfect is acceptable, then self-kindness might feel strange, or even wrong. You might think if I don't push myself, I'll never improve. But pushing doesn't mean punishing. You can have high standards without shame. You can want to grow and still love yourself right now. Self-kindness is not about giving up. It's about giving yourself the space to breathe, to stumble, to rise again. It's about treating yourself like someone you're responsible for, helping, not someone you're here to judge. Imagine waking up tomorrow and saying, "I won't be perfect today, but I'll be kind to myself. I'll speak even if I make mistakes. I'll learn even if it's slow. I'll smile at myself, not just others." What would change? Maybe not everything at once, but slowly your shoulders would relax, your breath would deepen, your courage would return, and your love for learning the one that brought you here would grow stronger. You might still make mistakes, but now they won't break you. They'll teach you. And that's what learning really is, growing through kindness, not fear. So the next time you hear that critical voice inside, pause, take a deep breath, and gently ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, then you shouldn't say it to yourself either, because you deserve the same compassion you give to others. And that begins right now with a new voice inside, one that cheers for your effort, one that forgives your mistakes, one that stays soft even when things feel hard. You don't need to change everything today. Just begin with this: I will speak to myself with kindness, because I am learning, and that's enough. There's a quiet truth that many learners never hear, not from their teachers, not from textbooks, and sometimes not even from themselves. That truth is, you deserve kindness. Not someday, not when you're fluent, not when your pronunciation is perfect, but right now, just as you are. We live in a world that often celebrates speed, perfection, and results. We see people online sharing certificates, speaking fluently, giving motivational talks, and we think that's the standard. And if we don't meet that standard, we feel unworthy, behind, not enough. But those people, they didn't start there. No one begins at the finish line. Behind every confident voice is a story full of mistakes, self-doubt, and slow progress. And still they kept going. Not because they were never afraid, but because at some point they learned to treat themselves kindly enough to keep going. You deserve that same chance. You see, being kind to yourself is not a reward. It's not something you earn after doing something impressive. It's something you need while you're still figuring things out. Kindness is not a prize. It's a tool. A gentle one, but a powerful one. Let me ask you something. Would you ever teach a child by yelling at them every time they got a word wrong? Of course not. You'd smile, encourage them, clap for their small steps. So why do we believe we must tough love ourselves to grow? You are not a machine. You are a human being, a learner, and learners thrive in safety, not in shame. Let me tell you the story of Min. Min was a quiet man in his 30s. He had a stable job in his hometown, but he always dreamed of working abroad. English was the key, so he began studying at night. He started with beginner podcasts, children's books, and online classes. At first, he was excited, but soon the fear crept in. I'm too old. My accent is terrible. People will laugh if I speak. He compared himself to younger learners who spoke fast and naturally, and he began hiding. He stopped turning on his mic during class. He never recorded his voice because he couldn't stand hearing it. One day, his teacher gave the class a task: record a 1-minute introduction about yourself. Min almost skipped class that day. But that morning, something changed. He looked at himself in the mirror and whispered, "I'm doing my best." Just 5 small words. But for the first time, they felt real. He sat down, pressed record, and said, "My name is Min. I work in logistics. I am learning English because I have a dream." His grammar wasn't perfect. His voice shook. But he smiled at the end because he did it. And when he shared it with the class, something amazing happened. They clapped. They smiled. They cheered. No one laughed. No one judged. And Min realized the only one who had been unkind to him was himself. From that day on, he made a small promise: I will speak to myself like a friend. It wasn't easy. Some days the old thoughts came back, but every time they did, he repeated that promise. And slowly, Min stopped hiding. He started asking questions. He started laughing when he made mistakes and trying again. Today, Min speaks with confidence. Not because his English is perfect, it's not, but because he finally believes he is allowed to be imperfect and still be proud. You are too. You don't need someone else to tell you that you matter. You don't need to wait until you reach some magical level to feel proud. You can start right here, right now, with the way you talk to yourself. Every learner has their own pace. Some run, some walk, some take breaks, but all of them deserve respect, especially from themselves. Think about the things you've already done. You started learning English even if it felt scary. You listened to podcasts even when you didn't understand every word. You tried to speak even when you were afraid. You showed up again and again. That's not failure. That's courage. And courage deserves kindness. You may think, but I'm not good yet. Let me ask you, is a tree less valuable just because it's still growing? Is a flower less beautiful if it hasn't fully bloomed? No. We still admire them. We still care for them. You too are growing. You too are learning. And you too are already worthy of kindness. So today, maybe take a pause. Put your hand on your heart and say, I am doing enough. I am learning. I am worthy of love and kindness even from myself. It might feel strange, but say it anyway. Not because you believe it yet, but because someday you will. And when that day comes, you'll look back and realize that the softest voice inside you was also the strongest. We've talked about why you deserve kindness. But what does that actually look like? What does self-kindness feel like when you're sitting at your desk trying to write a sentence in English and your mind goes blank? What does it sound like when you hear yourself mispronounce a word? Again, what does it mean to be kind to yourself when you feel like giving up? You see, kindness is not just a feeling, it's a practice, a choice you make every single day in small, quiet moments. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine you're practicing English and you say, I go to the store yesterday. And immediately your brain jumps in. That's wrong. You always mess up the past tense. Why can't you get this simple thing right? Now pause, take a breath, and try again with kindness. Instead of, that's wrong, you say, oh, not goed. It's went. That's okay. Now I remember. Instead of, you always mess up, you say, I've made that mistake before. It means I'm still learning. And that's normal. Instead of, why can't you get this right, you say, I'm trying. I'll get better with practice. That right there is what self-kindness looks like. It's not pretending you didn't make a mistake. It's not ignoring your errors. It's choosing to correct yourself without shame. Because mistakes don't mean failure. They mean movement. They mean you are doing the work. Let's take another situation. You've just listened to a podcast in English. You only understood about 40%. You close your eyes and feel that old voice rising up again. You're still not good enough. What's the point? You'll never understand everything. But now, you catch that voice, and you respond with compassion today. I understood more than I did last month. Even 40% is progress. I listened. I showed up. I'm proud of that. Self-kindness isn't dramatic. It doesn't shout. It's quiet, soft, but powerful. It's drinking a glass of water and saying I'm taking care of myself. It's closing your eyes for 10 minutes when you feel tired instead of forcing yourself to keep pushing through. It's saying no to something when you need rest and not feeling guilty about it. It's stopping after a long day and saying, I didn't do everything. But I did what I could. Let me tell you about Yuko. Yuko moved to Canada from Japan. She was excited to start her new life, but she struggled to understand native speakers. At first, she practiced every night. She recorded herself, took notes, but she also pushed herself too hard. If she missed one day, she called herself lazy. If she forgot a word, she told herself she was stupid. Over time, her love for English faded, not because the language was too hard, but because her inner voice was too cruel. Then one day, she read something online. Talk to yourself like you would talk to a child who is trying their best. She paused. She thought of her niece, only 6 years old, trying to say a sentence in English. Would she ever call that little girl stupid? Would she ever say, you're not good enough? Never. That moment changed everything for Yuko. She started writing small, kind notes to herself on sticky paper. You're doing great. Progress, not perfection. Even one sentence is a success. She put them on her mirror, on her notebook, on her wall. And slowly, the voice inside her began to soften. She made mistakes and smiled. She forgot words and kept going. She stopped waiting to be perfect and started celebrating being present. That's what kindness looks like. It's letting go of comparison. It's accepting where you are. It's noticing the small wins, not just chasing the big ones. Maybe you think, that sounds nice, but I'm just too used to being hard on myself. That's okay. Being kind to yourself doesn't mean changing overnight. It means noticing, catching, and gently changing the script. If you've spent years speaking to yourself with harshness, the soft voice of kindness may feel unfamiliar. But just like English, it can be learned with practice, with repetition, with patience. Here are a few real-life examples of what you can do starting today. After each study session, write one sentence. Today I learned, or today I tried. When you make a mistake, pause and say, I'll get it next time. This is part of learning. If you feel frustrated, close your eyes and take one deep breath. Whisper to yourself, it's okay. I'm human. Celebrate micro wins, saying hello in English, understanding a sign, remembering a new word. Give yourself permission to rest without guilt. Say rest is also part of progress. These small actions done with intention slowly retrain your mind. They create a safer space inside you, a space where you are allowed to grow, to fall, to rise again. And over time, that inner kindness becomes your habit, not just in English, but in life. You start to trust yourself more. You stop being afraid of your own voice. You begin to carry yourself with quiet confidence. So the next time your brain tries to punish you for not being good enough, pause and do something different. Smile. Speak gently. Say I'm learning. And I'm proud of that. Because the more you treat yourself with kindness, the more you'll believe that you are worth the journey. And you are. By now you understand what self-kindness is. You know what it sounds like. You know what it looks like in daily life. But now let's go even deeper. Let's talk about how being kind to yourself can change everything. Yes, everything. Because when you start speaking to yourself with gentleness, you don't just become a better English learner. You become a better you. Let me explain. When you replace shame with understanding, fear starts to shrink. When you swap pressure for patience, your body relaxes. When you choose self-love over self-judgment, your motivation returns. Learning becomes lighter. Speaking becomes easier. Mistakes become less scary. You stop saying I'll never be good enough, and you start saying I'm doing my best. And that small change in mindset, it echoes into every part of your life. You begin to enjoy learning again. You smile more when you speak. You feel safer trying new things. You treat your progress with more respect. You stop needing to prove your worth because you finally believe you have worth already. Think about this. If you can be kinder to yourself in English, a skill that challenges you daily, you start to build emotional muscles that help you everywhere. At work, in relationships, when life gets hard. Because kindness isn't just about language, it's about connection to yourself. Let me share a story with you. Carlos was a young man from Brazil. He worked as a waiter during the day and studied English at night. His dream to move to Ireland and study hospitality. He had the passion, he had the plan, but one thing kept holding him back, his own voice. Not his English voice, his inner voice. Every time he practiced speaking, he'd hear, "Your accent is embarrassing. You sound stupid. No one will take you seriously." Even when others praised him, he didn't believe them, because inside that unkind voice was louder. Then one evening, he had a conversation with a regular customer, an old man from London. They talked about soccer, coffee, and travel. The man smiled and said, "You know your English is getting really good. I enjoy chatting with you." Carlos smiled politely. But that night when he went home, something broke open inside him. He sat on his bed, closed his eyes, and whispered, "If he can see the good in me, why can't I?" That was his turning point. Carlos made a promise that night. He wouldn't let his harsh inner voice steal his dream. He started writing short notes to himself each week. You were brave today. You tried something new. You helped a customer in English and smiled while doing it. Little by little, his confidence grew. He didn't become fluent overnight. He still made mistakes. But now those mistakes didn't destroy him because he had built a softer place inside. Eventually, Carlos applied for that program in Ireland, and he got in. He didn't celebrate by shouting. He just sat quietly, placed his hand on his heart, and said, "Thank you, Carlos, for not giving up on me." You see, self-kindness creates space. It allows your real voice, your authentic self, to come forward. When you stop fighting yourself, you start hearing your own wisdom. You start trusting your own process, and you start walking through life with more peace. Let me ask you something. What would your day feel like if your first thought in the morning wasn't, "I'm not ready," but instead, "I'm enough for today"? What would happen if your response to a mistake wasn't, "I'm terrible," but instead, "I'm still learning"? How would your life feel? If the loudest voice inside you said, "I believe in you," you don't need to imagine it forever. You can begin to live it right now. Self-kindness doesn't need time. It needs choice. A simple moment where you say, "I choose to be kind today," even if I don't get everything right, even if I feel unsure, even if I'm afraid. Because growth doesn't begin when you're perfect. It begins when you feel safe enough to try. That safety, that peace, that strength. It starts with the way you treat yourself. So if you've spent your whole life waiting for someone else to encourage you, to believe in you, to forgive you, here's something powerful: you can be that person. For yourself. You don't have to be fluent to be worthy. You don't have to be fast to be valuable. You don't have to be perfect to be proud. You just have to be kind. Kind when you're tired. Kind when you're slow. Kind when you forget. Kind when you fall behind. Kind when you want to give up. Because that kindness practiced over and over becomes your new habit. And when kindness becomes your habit, learning becomes a joy. Life becomes lighter. And you become unstoppable. You've come a long way in this episode. You've listened deeply. You've reflected. You've opened your heart to the idea that maybe, just maybe, you don't need to be so hard on yourself anymore. But now the question becomes, how do I actually do this? How do I practice being kind to myself when I'm so used to judgment? When my habits are built on pressure, fear, and perfection? The answer is not try harder. It's try softer. Because self-kindness doesn't require you to change everything overnight. It just asks you to be in one moment at a time. So let me share with you some simple real-life ways to start practicing self-kindness in your English journey and in your life. 1. Speak to yourself like a friend. Imagine your best friend comes to you and says, "I made a mistake while speaking English today. I feel so stupid." Would you say, "Yes, you are stupid"? Of course not. You'd say something like, "It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. You're learning. Now imagine you said that to yourself. Next time you forget a word, or mispronounce something, or freeze in conversation, pause and speak to yourself as if you were your own friend. Say, "It's okay. I'm learning. This doesn't define me. I'm proud that I tried." Just changing one sentence in your inner dialogue can change your whole emotional experience. 2. Start a kindness journal. Each night, take just 3-5 minutes to write answers to these questions. What's one thing I did well today? What's one thing I tried, even if it wasn't perfect? What would I say to myself if I were being kind? You don't need long paragraphs, just a few lines. This small practice helps retrain your brain to focus on progress, not just mistakes. Over time, this becomes a habit, and your thoughts slowly shift. 3. Celebrate the small wins. Most people only celebrate big goals like passing a test or getting a job, but real growth comes from small daily wins. So celebrate when you understand a podcast without subtitles, learn 5 new words, speak in English even for 30 seconds, ask a question in class, show up even when you felt tired or afraid. Say to yourself, that was brave, that was growth, that was enough. When you start to celebrate small wins, your brain starts to look for more, and learning becomes joyful again. 4. Rest without guilt. Many learners believe rest is wasting time. But here's the truth. Rest is part of progress. Your brain needs time to process, reflect, and recover. So if you're tired, take a break. If you need a quiet day, take it. If your body feels heavy, honor that feeling. Say, resting now helps me come back stronger later. And believe it, because it's true. 5. Replace comparison with curiosity. When you see someone who's better at English, don't say, I'll never be like them. Instead, say, I wonder how long they've been learning. I wonder what helped them grow. I'm inspired by them, and I'm walking my own path. Turn envy into inspiration. Turn self-doubt into curiosity. Turn pressure into peace. You are not in a race. You are in a journey. 6. Create a kindness reminder. Sometimes we forget to be kind, especially when we're busy, tired, or frustrated, so create visual reminders around you. A sticky note on your mirror. Progress, not perfection. A wallpaper on your phone. You are doing enough. An alarm that goes off each evening. Time to speak gently to myself. These small reminders bring you back to the mindset you want to build. Because transformation doesn't come from big ideas. It comes from small actions done consistently. Let me tell you a story. There's a woman named Noor. She's from Egypt. She used to cry after every English speaking test. Why? Because even if she answered 80% of the questions right, her mind would only remember the 20% she didn't. She'd go home and say, I'm so bad at this. I should quit. I'm just not smart. Until one day, her teacher gave her a different kind of homework. He said, after your next test, I want you to write down 3 things you did well. Only positive things, nothing else. Noor laughed. She thought it sounded silly, but she tried it. After the next test, she wrote, I remembered the word confident and used it correctly. I spoke clearly even when I was nervous. I kept going even after I made a mistake. She still remembered the 20% she didn't get right. But now, it wasn't everything. It wasn't all of who she was. She had learned how to be fair to herself, to see her strengths, to hold space for her effort, and that more than any grammar rule changed the way she learned. You can do the same. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. You don't need to finish fast. You just need to keep walking. And the best way to keep walking is to walk with kindness. So today, maybe after this podcast ends, try one small act. Write one kind sentence to yourself. Celebrate one small win. Forgive one small mistake. Say I'm doing enough, because you are. You don't need to do more to deserve kindness. You just need to remember that it's already yours.